Imagine a soldier from a small African nation staring down a king in his own palace. The air's thick cameras are rolling and the world's watching. One wrong word could spark chaos. Will he bow, or will he break centuries of silence? This is the story of Captain Ibrahim, Traore, a man who didn't just challenge the British crown, he forced it to face its past. A past of stolen gold-erased names and buried truths. Buckle up, because what happened next, it didn't just shake Buckingham Palace. It shook history itself. Ready for the full story? Let's dive in. Picture this. It's 2025, and the world's a powder keg. Old empires are clinging to their legacies, while new voices are rising, demanding to be heard. In the middle of this storm stands Captain Ibrahim Traore, the young, fiery leader of Burkina Faso. He's not a politician in a suit. He's a soldier barely in his 30s, with a gaze that could stop a room cold. Burkina Faso, a small West African nation, isn't exactly a global superpower. Landlocked, resource-rich, but cash-poor, it's been battered by colonial scars and modern struggles. Yet, Traore's got the world's attention. Why? Because he's not playing by the old rules. Now let's zoom across the globe to London. Buckingham Palace, gilded and grand, is the heart of the British monarchy. King Charles III, a man raised on tradition, is hosting a Commonwealth History Forum. It's supposed to be a polite affair, tea handshakes, and carefully worded speeches about shared history. But then an invitation lands in Ouagadougou. Traore, the outspoken leader, who's been rattling cages about colonial theft, is asked to attend. The British call it diplomacy. Traore sees it as a challenge. He accepts no hesitation. If they want to talk history, he says, let's talk the truth. Why does this matter? Because this isn't just a meeting. It's a collision of worlds. The British Empire, once spanning continents, left behind a trail of looted gold, broken cultures, and rewritten stories. For centuries, those stories were told by the victors. But Traore, he's here to flip the script. For him, this is personal, his nation's wealth, his people's dignity stolen long ago. For Charles, it's a tightrope walk, uphold the crown's image, or face a reckoning. The stakes, nothing less than history itself. One misstep, and the world could erupt protests, headlines, maybe even a crack in the monarchy's armor. So what happens when a soldier meets a king? Hang on, it's about to get intense. Let's set the scene. It's a chilly morning at Heathrow Airport, and Captain Ibrahim Traore steps off the plane. No fanfare, no smile, just a firm nod to the British officials waiting with their starched suits and forced politeness. The air's heavy, like everyone knows something big's about to go down. Traore's not here for a photo op. He's here to confront a legacy, centuries of colonial theft, dressed up as civilization. The British media's already buzzing. Will Traore bow to the crown? A BBC panelist sneers. A conservative pundit tweets, he doesn't belong in our halls. Oh, but he's coming anyway. Inside Buckingham Palace, the vibe straight out of a history book. Gilded portraits of African conquests line the walls, screaming colonial nostalgia. Traore walks in, and you can feel the power dynamic shift. Old empire versus new defiance. King Charles III, in his royal attire, stands to greet him. Captain Traore, he says, voice smooth but guarded, welcome to Britain. Traore locks eyes with him. We've come a long way, haven't we? He replies. Then with a pause that could stop time, he adds, some of us walked. Others stole ships. Boom. The room freezes. Diplomats cough. Cameras click. Charles forces a smile, but you can tell he's rattled. I suppose we'll speak frankly today, he says. Traore doesn't blink. I don't know any other way. Outside, London's divided. Crowds gather, some wave Union Jacks, Others hoist signs, "Africa is not yours," and apologize for empire social media's exploding. Traore just threw the first punch, one tweet reads. The stage is set, and the world's got front row seats. But why is this moment so electric? Because Traore's not just speaking for Burkina Faso. He's carrying the weight of a continent robbed of its gold, its names, its stories. And Charles, he's defending a crown built on that same loot. This isn't diplomacy. It's a showdown. But what happens when you call out an empire in its own household that thought the round table begins, and it's like watching a chess match with live grenades? Crystal glasses clink, aides pass silver trays, and Oxford historians drone on about the legacy of empire civilization cooperation conflict. Charles takes the floor first. Our past isn't flawless, he says, all solemn and regal. But through colonization, we brought infrastructure, literacy, law. We tamed chaos. The room nods politely. Traore, he's not nodding. He's waiting, arms folded, eyes like steel. When the moderator calls on him, Traore leans forward. You speak of civilization as a gift, he says, voice low but sharp. Gifts aren't taken by force. The room goes quiet. He keeps going. Your empire didn't build roads for us. It built roads to your ports. You didn't teach law. You enforced obedience. You drained our land, erased our languages, and now you wear our ancestors' jewels in your crowns and call it culture. You could cut the tension with a knife. A British official shifts in his seat. A historian tries to jump in, but the moderator shuts it down. Charles takes a deep breath. You make strong claims, Captain. But without our institutions, where would Burkina Faso be today? Traore doesn't miss a beat. Free, he says. Maybe poorer, maybe slower to industrialize, but free. The king pushes back. You forget the violence in your own borders. We didn't invent tribal conflict. Traore's eyes narrow. You didn't stop it. You fed it, armed it, profited from it. You wrote, divide and rule in blood. Silence. Deafening silence. The moderator scrambles to move on, but the damage is done. Traore's not here to play nice. He's rewriting the narrative line by line. Outside, the world's catching fire. Clips of Traore's words hit X within minutes. He said what needed saying, one post screams. Another Traore didn't come for tea. He came to testify. By morning, headlines are screaming Traore challenges the crown Burkina Faso leader schools king in Buckingham Palace. Charles is fuming. He embarrassed me, he mutters to Camilla. In my own house. She raises an eyebrow. Or maybe he just told the truth. Ouch. But what's next? Because Traore's not done yet. London's in chaos. The BBC invites Traore for a televised interview, and the anchor tries to trap him. Do you regret how you spoke to His Majesty? She asks, all syrupy diplomacy. Traore's reply is ice cold. I regret only that we waited this long to say it. The clip goes viral, TikTok, X, YouTube, you name it. He said it to the king's face. One caption reads, in Oxford, students ditch their textbooks to debate colonialism inspired by a living leader. In Lagos and Nairobi cafes, buzz with pride. This man speaking for all of us, a Kenyan student says. But not everyone's cheering. At 10 Downing Street, the Prime Minister's livid. He's hijacking decorum, he snaps in a call to the palace. Charles, still stinging, replies, decorum's a luxury for those who weren't looted. Burn. In Parliament, MPs are at each other's throats. A conservative demands Traore apologize for disrespecting the monarch. A Nigerian-born MP fires back, if truth is disrespect, what's our pride built on the monarchy's approval dips, below 50%, a historic low. Whispers of a Regency Act float around, but they're drowned out by the noise. Back in Burkina, Faso Traore's speech sparks a movement. His government announces the gold restoration audit, a commission to trace colonial theft. Mali, Ghana, and South Africa join in. This isn't revenge, Traore says in a national address. It's recovery of wealth memory voice. British tabloids lose it. Traore declares economic war, screams the Daily Mail. Pundits mock his accent, his youth. He thinks he's Sankara with Wi-Fi, one sneers. But Traore's unfazed. When a Sky News reporter asks if he fears ruining UK ties, he stares into the camera. A relationship built on silence isn't friendship. It's obedience. We obey no one. McDrop. Meanwhile, Charles is reeling. He meets with historians from the Royal Collection Trust. What would it take to return the gold, he asks. Silence. One advisor finally says, if we give it to him, others will come knocking. Charles looks out the window. They already are. Across the globe, Jamaica's Prime Minister demands reparations talks. India's Parliament cites Traore to audit British looting. Museums in Brussels and Berlin brace for claims. Traore is one man, but he started a tidal wave. And it's about to crash. The world's on edge, but Charles makes a move no one expects. He sends a letter to Ouagadougou, not from diplomats, but from him. A private summit, neutral ground, no press. Just two men face to face. When Traore reads it, he smiles faintly and folds the paper. The time's come, he says to his aide. In Burkina Faso, whispers of the meeting spread like wildfire. Kids reenact Traore's lines in schoolyards. Street vendors sell shirts. This is our gold. But in London, MI6 flags unrest in former colonies, protests, mural speeches. One report warns Traore's not just shifting geopolitics, he's rewriting history. The meeting's set in Geneva, a secluded estate, no flags, no cameras. Charles arrives first, his face tight. Traore walks in, no medals, just a notebook. They don't shake hands. The silence is heavy until Charles speaks. I wanted to see the man who calls my country a thief. Traore doesn't flinch. Your country didn't just steal. It built an empire on what it stole. Charles exhales. I grew up on tales of glory. They never mentioned the blood. Traore steps closer. And now the blood's screaming from the soil. So talk. The king hesitates. What do you want from me? Traore sets his notebook down. Not money. Not apologies from lawyers. Acknowledgement from your lips to the world. Say what happened. Charles stiffens. You want me to dismantle Britain's self-image? No, Traore says. I want the truth. Let the world decide what's next. The room's quiet, but the stakes are screaming. Charles whispers, you'll destroy me. Traore's steady. Not you. The myth. What happens next? It's not just a conversation. It's the moment history bends. Stay with me, the Geneva estate is silent, like the world's holding its breath. Snow falls outside, but inside the air's electric. King Charles II sits across from Captain Ibrahim Traoré. No aides, no cameras, just two men and centuries of ghosts. Charles breaks the quiet, his voice low. You'll destroy me? He says again, eyes searching. Traoré leans forward, steady as stone. Not you, he repeats. The myth. The one that says your empire was a gift. Charles flinches, but he doesn't look away. I'm tired, he admits, almost a whisper. Tired of pretending, tired of the ghosts. Traoré nods just once. Then let's bury them, he says. Properly. The words hang heavy like a challenge and a lifeline all at once. Charles stares at the notebook on the table, Traore's quiet weapon, filled with truths too long ignored. What does that mean? Charles asks. What do you want me to do? Traore's voice is calm but unyielding. Stand before the world. Say what your empire did. Not in private, not through diplomats. You Charles the King. Say it. Charles shifts his hands, tightening. And then what riots my crown in pieces? Traore's eyes soften, but his words don't. Then we build. On honesty. On dignity. On equal terms. The room feels smaller now, the walls closing in. Charles stands pacing to the window. I was taught glory, he says, voice cracking. Maps, ships, heroes. No one spoke of the blood. Traore rises to, closing the distance. The blood speaking now. From my soil, from my people. You hear it, don't you? Charles turns, and for the first time there's no mask. Just a man weary, caught between a throne and the truth. I hear it, he says softly. But the world, they'll tear us apart. Traore's half-smile is almost gentle. Let them try. Truth doesn't bend. Minutes pass, or maybe hours. Time's irrelevant when history's on the line. Charles sits again, hands folded. If I do this, he says, it's not just me. It's Britain, the Commonwealth, everything. Traore doesn't waver. Everything built on lies was always going to fall. You choose when. The king's eyes meet his, and something shifts, a decision quiet but seismic. I'm tired of ghosts, Charles repeats, stronger now. Traore nods. Good. Let's make them rest. By dusk, they've agreed. Not to a press release or a diplomatic dodge, but to something unthinkable, a televised address. Charles will speak not from a throne, but beside Traore. Two podiums side by side, one with a royal seal, one blank. No crown, no ceremony, just truth. The date's set, and the world's about to change. But here's the kicker. This isn't just Charles admitting fault. It's Traore, a soldier from a small nation forcing an empire to face its shadow. And Charles, in this moment, isn't just a king. He's a man choosing to break a cycle. As they leave the room, Traore pauses. You're not weak for this, he says. Charles looks back surprised. You're human. The king nods, and for the first time, there's a flicker of peace in his eyes. Outside, the snow keeps falling, but inside, something's been set free. What happens when a king and a soldier rewrite history together? You're about to find out. The address hits like a thunderclap. Screens light up from Accra to Auckland, millions, glued to two men standing side by side. King Charles's words, "We took gold labor identity and gave back silence," echo across continents. Gasps ripple through pubs, parliaments, and village squares. Traore stands tall, arms folded, letting the king's confession speak for itself. When their hands meet in a handshake, it's not just a photo op. It's a fracture in history. Social media erupts. Truth has no crown trends for days. In Burkina Faso, murals spring up, a king without a crown, a soldier without fear. But the fallout's messy. In London, Buckingham Palace is a war zone of whispers. Advisors call it humiliation. Some MPs scream treason. Polls tank monarchy approval hits historic lows. Across the Atlantic, Washington's rattled. He handed our rivals a PR win, a White House aide mutters. Yet, in Africa, it's electric. Crowds dance in Ouagadougou, not with anger, but awe. In Brazil, indigenous leaders weep. South African students hug on campus lawns. Traore's launched a movement. His Justice Archive project tracing colonial theft gains African Union backing. Museums in Europe, panic-leaked memos reveal fears over looted artifacts like Benin bronzes. The ripple effect grows. Jamaica demands reparations talks. India audits British-era theft. Germany and the Netherlands announce artifact returns. A global reckoning's begun sparked by one man's voice. But Traore's clear words are the start. Actions, the answer. Back in Burkina Faso, he faces pushback investors, hesitate diplomats, pull back. He shrugs it off. Let them worry, he tells his cabinet. We're not asking anymore. We're expecting. So what's the lesson? Truth doesn't bring peace. It brings clarity. Charles didn't fall. He stood taller by admitting the crown's flaws. Traore didn't just demand justice. He forced the world to listen. This wasn't about revenge. It was about breaking a cycle of denial, building a future on honesty. For Americans watching, it's a mirror. What stories do we bury? What truths do we owe? This moment asks us all, can we face our past to fix our future? The answer's still unfolding, but one thing's certain: history's not silent anymore. And it's shouting loudest from a small nation in West Africa. So what's the takeaway from this seismic moment? Captain Ibrahim Traoré didn't just face down a king, he forced the world to confront its buried truths. King Charles didn't crumble. He found courage and honesty, proving even empires can bend. This wasn't a clash of crowns and soldiers. It was a reckoning between silence and dignity, a call to build a future that doesn't hide from its past. From Ouagadougou to London, a small nation's voice shook the globe, reminding us truth isn't a weapon. It's a foundation. Now, let's talk to you. What do you think? Should leaders own their history like Charles did? Can America face its own ghosts, slavery, indigenous loss, with the same clarity? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's get this conversation going. If this story hit you, smash that like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more deep dives into moments that reshape our world. Your support keeps these stories alive. Oh, and stick around. Next week, we're diving into another global shakeup, a young activist taking on a tech giant and winning. Trust me, you won't see it coming. So hit that bell icon, and let's keep unpacking history together. Because as Traore showed us, the past isn't dead. It's speaking. Are we listening? See you in the next one.